Hi, so what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a yellow rose out of Fimo, and then I'm going to cast it in resin. I've rolled my yellow Fimo out, and I've got a piece of thick wire here, and I've made a teardrop shape and put it on the end because that's going to be the inside of my rose. I use a carving tool really to cut out the smaller shapes for the petals that I want for the inside. I used my pasta maker to roll this out because it does give you a nice even thin sheet, but actually you can do this with an acrylic roller without any problems whatsoever. I make sure that I separate the leaves as I'm going, or the petals as I'm going through, as you saw there, because if not, I do have a tendency to be a little bit heavy-handed, and this will just end up being one squidged middle. And I actually increase the sizes of the rose petals as I'm going forward slightly, so that you've got an increase. And remember, when you've got a rose, all the petals kind of finish at the same height. The center isn't dipped in. And as you can see here, I am cutting them out slightly larger and bending them over to give that rose finish. I do have it propped in this piece of blue tack. You could use a piece of clay, or to be honest, a piece of florist foam to hold this in, and I just find it's easier and I'm less likely to damage what I'm actually doing while I'm doing it. So there we go, that's the rose now that's completely finished. I did this in fast forward so it's easier for you to watch, and I've made a ring on the bottom of that to hold it up. So now I've got some green Fimo here to make the leaves with, and remember, rose leaves are slightly jagged on the edges, so I always try and get 4 leaves, but I generally cut 5 leaves out when I'm doing this, because if not, I do tend to mess one up. So there we go, they're cut out, and I don't need them to be exact. I don't use a template because, let's be honest, in nature they're not exact. So I draw a vein line down the middle, and then I rough up the actual inside of the leaf, because that is how a rose leaf looks. It's got the little veins coming out, but then the actual rose itself, the actual leaf is quite roughed up. So there we go, you can see me just using this little pointy tool here to go through and rough these leaves up. And then what I will do with these leaves, once I've done all of these like this, is I will go round and I will make the edges jagged. I'm just going over with a small ball-ended tool here to make those indents stand out further than the roughing as well. And here I go, putting in the jagged edges of this leaf. It also softens the leaf off as well, so it doesn't look so square cut, but it does make it look a little bit more realistic in the finished leaf. And this was quite a warm day as well that I was doing this in, so once I'd conditioned the clay, the actual clay stayed really soft, too soft to be honest, for what I was doing. I could have done with it to be a little bit cooler. And now I'm just cutting out the little bits that go around the base of the flower, and that's where the actual flower and all the petals have burst out of the closed bud. And I just think that gives it a final look as well, and I will just push them onto the actual base of the petals. I'm going over it here with a little bit of clay softener to get out any fingerprints or any bits that I want, and to soften the leaf off, but also I feel it helps to remove any little tiny bits of clay that I've missed. I'm just cutting some strips here of the green clay to put round the actual stem, which is currently the wire. So there we go, and it's quite an easy task. I'm just straightening this wire out from where it's been sitting, and I'm just popping this around it and wrapping it around it. I don't want it to be too even because they don't grow completely straight. It's not like bamboo. So I want it to be a little bit, as I would say, gnarly. And I'm just rolling it between my fingers to get rid of the seam, and then I will adjust it to how I feel it should be adjusted. Add a bit more onto towards the middle and the bottom to thicken it up slightly, so it looks like it's a slightly thicker stem. using exactly the same techniques, pressing it on and ensuring that I can't see any of the seams. And then I'll take a knife and I'll cut the bottom bit off as well, because I still want a piece of that wire to be exposed. Now it's about attaching these, lifting them up. And the great thing about Fimo and Sculpey and any of these polymer clays is they work really well in resin. They also work, as you've seen in my other videos, really well to create shapes to cast and make silicone molds out of. So there we go, those three are on there now. So from underneath it does look like it's burst out of its little bud. And now I will put that in there and attach the leaves. I am using a bacon bond for the leaves, and as you can see here, I am fighting with them because they are so soft and it is just so warm in here. So what I do is I prop them up like this and in the position and shape that I want them, and then I use that shape and that position and bake it in the oven at 130 degrees for about 15-20 minutes, and then the leaves do stay where you want them. There we go. So they've baked up really nicely, but they still look a very flat colour here, which is not what I want. So I will be addressing that a little bit more on how to change those colours up slightly. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a base for this to stand in, because I actually want it to be standing on a base, almost like a presentation. It's really easy to do. I just use a cookie cutter, roll it out to the thickness of these lollipop sticks, and there we go, I get a perfect round. I did a smaller cookie cutter, and then I did a pattern over the top of that. And as you can see, I did also put some indents in it as well. And what I'll do is I'll make a little loop on the bottom of this before I stick it in the clay, because then it helps it to adhere into that clay. It's far more less likely to fall out or work loose, and it should stay in there. And then I just rebake it again, just filling in that hole a little bit with a little bit of spare clay and smoothing that over, and then I just rebake it from there. So there we go, it's all baked, all finished. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a colour wash of 2 different coloured greens over the top of these leaves, and then wipe it off so it gets a little bit more depth. Now I did make a mistake, which you'll see later on in this video with this colour wash, that I should have known better to do and shouldn't have actually done, but there we go, we all make mistakes. So that's darkened those leaves off nicely, and when you rub it off with a piece of cloth, it actually does, and as you can see they're quite robust leaves, it actually does dry up and make it look really nice, look shadows and depth. I'm painting the base black because I like that, and then I just dry brush over the top of that black a little bit of dark grey to give it again some depth and some contrast, because it is my intention to cast this one in a piece of resin. So I've made my little resin pot, and what I'm going to be using is some UV resin to stick this base down onto the bottom so it doesn't move around, so it's not inclined to go out of position. And this is really easy. I use UV resin an awful lot for this sort of thing. In fact, I don't use UV resin for castings at all. I mainly use it as a glue, because when you've got clear film like this, you just have to put your light on underneath. So I'm pouring this all in one go because I'm using a slow cure pouring resin that takes 72 hours to cure, which means that I can pour it in one go and you don't have too many problems with bubbles. Okay, so this is finished now, my rose. I made the coaster quite rustic. I was quite pleased with how that came out, because I think it goes on there really well and it fits on there really well. It looks like a great base and it does light the whole thing up. So let's have a look and see what it looks like in the dark. Oh, I am so pleased with how that has come out. And that would make a great night light. And you could actually do different ones of these with different things in and just pop them on this base. I think that would make a great night light for someone, for anybody. So I hope you've enjoyed this project. Let me know in the comments whether you'll be making one, or if you've got any questions or anything else like that, or if you'd like to see me make more of these sorts of things, leave the comment letting me know. Don't forget to join my Facebook Facebook group, How to Resin with Steve McDonald. It's going really well now. The links to everything that I've used in this project can be found in the description. Enjoy your resin. Bye.